Hey everybody, welcome to the Secret History Living in Your Aquarium. So right in here, this is one of my fry hatchling tanks, and these appear to be almost all erythromicrons, which are also known as emerald dwarf rasboras. They're a cool fish that was discovered in Lake Inle. I have a whole species profile on them and how to care for them and everything in another video if you're interested in them. But basically what I did was I have shrimp tanks if you're curious about my breeding methods and how I get such good results basically while multi-breeding several species at the same time in the same place. So basically I keep the adults in other tanks. Right now I'm simulating a dry season, letting the tank get warmer and the flow get lower, and in this tank it's the wet season. Everything's very aerated, water's very clear, and basically we are releasing the fry of the emerald dwarf rasboras, as well as some of these small, they're a little washed out because it's the middle of the night, which is the easiest time to catch fry. Some of these phoenix rasboras too. So this is basically a Lake Inle species tank up here. There's some shrimp from Lake Inle, and then there's also the multi-barred loaches, the phoenix rasboras. There is a betta who could eat the smaller ones, I suppose. And then there's also a rice fish that's from the Indian subcontinent all the way through over to China and Thailand. However, it's not actually in Lake Inle, but it is in some of the waterways around the region. So here's an adult erythromicron emerald dwarf rasbora, and basically I have some older ones in there that are just in a community tank that I show off. In this tank here, I keep my favorite ones, the brightest colored ones, the best breeders essentially. And so they're a little sleepy and not so colorful right now because it's nighttime. But what I'm doing is I've already released 4 as of yesterday, 4 erythromicrons, and then of the phoenix rasboras, I've released 3 of their babies into here. So what I do is I take this tank, and then I'll take this tank, or even just a little hang off the side tank with an air stone in it, and I'll separate the males and females as best as I can, and then I'll feed them live baby brine shrimp, the adults, as well as vinegar eels. And I'll keep them separate from one another, put cardboard in between so that they can't see each other, or plastic or something. And then once I've done that for a week or so, we've got the water at a temperature where it's fairly warm, and so it feels like it is summer, and the monsoons haven't started yet. But these fish all like to spawn when the wet season starts. So when it's there's not really seasons in the equatorial regions like we have 4 seasons in the United States. So in these equatorial regions, they have seasons that are wet and dry, and then it's hot and super hot, basically, or hot and humid, or hot and less humid, but still pretty humid. So these fish, though, like to lay eggs right when the rain starts, because that's when all the streams and rivers will overflow soon. And so they usually sense the end of the dry season. Look at the baby shrimp we have swimming around. So they sense the end of the dry season, usually by pressure changes and their water going down, lots of rooty plants, and the density of the plants is more intense. And then also by the food allowance. So usually they're able to hunt more food because there's less water for it to hide in, and so they're getting all fat and full on that, and hopefully their puddle doesn't dry out, but also water pressure they can sense, and the TDS. So raising the TDS also makes them feel like, so in here we have tin winnies or gold ring Danios, and also some snails I'm raising or breeding out. I needed some trumpet snails, Malaysian trumpet snails, so I've got a healthy amount of them all eating this algae on here. And so here, this is where we would have the fish if we're prepping the parents. So I would take these adults, move them to here, put them together. I said that I would separate the males and females, and then I would put them in there and either have them lay eggs in there and then pull them out. Or my favorite way to do it is to actually use my shrimp tanks down here, and I will put the parents in here for maybe 3 to 5 days. I'll just let them do their thing with egg scatterers, nano fish, and the rest of the time I don't have fish in here, so the shrimp don't necessarily eat all of the little planaria. Like, see, we've got planaria here, we've got detritus worms, seed shrimp, all sorts of little critters. Same with this tank, all sorts of little critters that happen to grow in an aquarium when you have plants and no fish. So with that and the algae and then the plankton, so this tank gets some natural light but not a ton, that allows them to have a food source. And so I don't even need to make any sort of infusoria necessarily when the babies hatch. They have their yolk sac for the first few days, and then they have a few months of food, like their first 2 months of food are pretty secure in here. Now the only problem is when I have a bunch of baby shrimp hatch, like I am doing right now. You can see that one up there. You can see some really teeny ones that are starting to hatch also. And then I have a boatload of pregnant females right now in my Blue Dream tank. So the main thing, I'll be culling some of these shrimp too and starting another tank that we can do all the same stuff in. But right now I need to get out these fish so that the shrimp with eggs, like this one here, so that they can have as many babies survive as possible. And then hopefully I'll be splitting this colony into 2 tanks again, because I love my Lucas Brett's Blue Dream shrimp. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is actually start catching those babies, and I'll be putting them in this little deal here. Now, this is also where I put angelfish eggs, crib eggs, pleco eggs, things like that. But you can see on the tail of this little teeny baby fish that it has a black dot, and so that's how I'm going to know that it's an erythromicron. Whereas in this tank here, we had a bunch of baby bettas. So the bettas, I took the eggs out of the bubble nest and I threw them into this tank, and there are still bettas in here, but most of them are I've moved them. So I had at one point 5 different species, Phoenix Rasboras, tin winnies, bettas, and the erythromicron that I did the same thing with. But now that, like I said, the fish are getting bigger, we need to pull them out, and I like to keep track each day because I don't get them all in one day, obviously. They hide pretty well with all the plants that I have in here for them. But, here's one coming out here. So I'm going to start to catch them. They're pretty easy to catch when they're this small because they get spooked easily, and then they end up running right into the net, and you can just pop them right out of the net really easily. And just, well, one-handed it's less easy, but there they are. Now they're big enough that the adults won't be eating them, and they'll be able to grow out with the adults. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll show you how many I end up pulling out of here. If there's any really teeny ones, like sometimes you get slow growers, I will kind of take account of that, and like this is a good example. This one right here is probably too small to want to pull out right now. You can see the black dot hasn't really, if we can get it to focus, the black dot hasn't even formed on this little fella. So we don't need to capture it. If I find any more bettas, come on, focus. If I find any more bettas, then we'll also pull them out. But they seem to, they'll hang out like right along the bottom, in between the rocks and things. But this is a really efficient way to, you know, raise, it's not, you're not going to raise a huge clutch of every species, but I seem to get in between half a dozen up to all the way up to like sometimes 2 dozen fish in each round of breeding this way. So we'll scoop them up, we'll catch them and count them, and see what the outcome is. All right, guys, I'll show you when we release them, so hang tight. All right, so we gathered up 14. It's amazing that 14 hide so well in here, but 14 of the bebes are hiding in here. Also, just to show you, we kind of kicked up the dirt, kicked off the dust in this tank here. But we've got, you know, we've still got these little teeny fish here, and if we look at them, these look like they're just slow growing bettas here. But you can also see all the shrimp that I disturbed, brought them out of their little hidey holes while chasing around some of the fish. But you can also see, which is great, that we've got, you know, pregnant female here. Maybe, is that a pregnant female? Looks like, yes, another pregnant female there. We've got a pregnant female up here. Another pregnant female right here. And another pregnant female. Is this one here? Actually, I can't tell on this one. Let's see. Yes. Sweet. So yeah, we probably have 5 or 6. I mean, if I see 5, that probably means that I have 10. But we've got a number of pregnant females. Also, we've got these really itty-bitty newborn shrimp. And those are what I need to survive. And, you know, usually there's enough of them in these tanks that it's okay if I lose, say, 50% of them to predation by these other the other species I have that I am I guess cultivating, growing in the tanks. But yeah, so some of these are starting to actually if we can see that, they're starting to get actual little bit of bar markings and the dot on the tail. So some of them are getting pretty big. And in the next day or two, I'll be checking to see what I missed. I'm sure I missed some fish, and they seem to hit the deck and hide back in the corners and things. So we'll definitely find a few more. But we've got 14 tonight. I like to do it around 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, just because if the lights have been off, the fish are not expecting it. They're kind of tucked in for the night, and they're a little groggy. So, alright, so now we're going to take these, and we're going to move them. Luckily, I've double-checked all the stats on the water, and the pH is a little different, but not far enough off to be a problem. So we're gonna pour these guys out. Make sure we get all of them. Did we get them all? Yeah. Nope, one more. There we go. Come on, last little guy. They're so small sometimes. Alright, so we got all these little guys in here. They should do okay. they're in with some of the smallest fish in the pet trade, so some of the smallest freshwater fish in the world, so they should be okay if they stay away from the betta. Most of them are quick enough at this size that that won't be a problem. So even though I just dumped all these fish in there, you don't see a ton of them. They're all kind of hiding various places. So alright guys, that is it for the night. Probably be moving a few of the Phoenix Rasboras and things into here later, and then seasoning my next batch of maybe the Somfongzi Rasboras, which are in here, bringing them, getting them ready to breed. And yeah, you can see that some of the bettas are getting a pretty good size in here now. Half an inch or more on some of the biggest ones, and then there's still the very small. Also, they grow at very different rates as a natural selection, I guess, strategy. So sometimes I'll have to, think quickly and move them if I miscalculated, who's going to get along with you. But even though they're known as fighting fish, they do kind of square off in the mirrors and things. They don't generally fight with their siblings until they reach a size of about 1.5 inches or so, and have their kind of adult coloration. After that, you really should split them up or put them in a large tank, or a 50-gallon colony tank with lots of hiding spots and foliage and all that kind of stuff. Alright guys, so I just wanted to show you how it goes in here, and we'll start up the next set of fish just for fun while I'm locked down. And let me know what you'd like to see me breed next. We've done a lot of different things. Might do some mock breeding with my next set of Luminatus fish. I don't know. What do you guys think? I could do that, or we could do more nano fish, Maybe we should breed some neon tetras or something like that. I don't know. Alright guys, well, I will talk to you later. Please like, subscribe if you want to do that. And if you want to support my fish in these schools to go through college, you can check out my Patreon and my Teespring, as well as, you can always just PayPal me too if you want to put some help towards feeding the fish, buying new equipment, and me going places and seeing things that share with you guys. Alright guys, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, stay safe, wash your hands, and swim on. Talk to you later. Blub blub.